cash grab. It's a word being thrown around a lot right now in regards to the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters. I mean, while I was trying to watch a few videos on the Pixel Remasters, as you do, literally in 4 minutes I found these 3 comments on 3 different videos that all called the games a cash grab. I mean, really? So I decided to go to Google and see what cash grab even meant because, I don't know, maybe the phrase means something that I'm missing out on. And no, it's exactly what it sounds like. Basically, an attempt to get a lot of money for a poor quality product. So in essence, the games are being touted as poor quality. Many people that label these games as a cash grab mention things like, these aren't the definitive versions, and they don't have the bonus content, so I don't like that. And that's fair. Opinions exist, and you're allowed to have them. I mean, whether or not these are the definitive versions are going to be discussed a little bit later on, because I think that's important too. But for now, are they really poor quality? Let's find out. I immediately went to the Steam page on each and every Pixel Remaster to see the ratings they got. Final Fantasy 1 got a very positive, 2 got mostly positive, I can't blame you for that one. 3 got a very positive, 4 very positive, 5 and 6 very positive. So that presents a problem when using words like poor quality. But that's only one avenue for ratings and reviews. Metacritic gave them from a 79, for Final Fantasy 2 of course, to an 89. Touch Arcade gave them from a 3.5 out of 5, to a 5 out of 5. So from a professional standpoint, these scores, even Final Fantasy 2's score, doesn't indicate poor quality. But maybe it's a subjective thing and these professionals are wrong. So let's look at user reviews. Well, now, this is interesting. Final Fantasy 1 got a 5.9. Well, let's read on and see why. Well, first, there's the word cash grab again. Oh, and literally because it hasn't been brought to Switch or any other console, they're giving it a 0. Stop here, I've got some words and stuff. Listen up, Fox Pug, Popo Head, and Angeal Dreams. You aren't giving the games ratings based on the fact that they're not on consoles yet. You are rating the Steam port of the games. Were they good or were they not good? Whether they're on console or mobile phones literally has 0 relevance. You can be upset that they're not on consoles yet. I mean, I'm steaming mad because you see what I'm sorry. But that isn't a reason to give them an automatic 0. You can't let your emotions get in the way of rating a game in an unbiased way. That's not how reviews work. It's kind of like being mad because you tried to eat Campbell's soup with a fork and you gave it a bad rating because it's not made for forks. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? It's because it is. Oh, and I know, you can easily go get a spoon, right? Just like you can easily wait for the console ports like the people that rated the game a higher score. We all have to wait. Square literally said they weren't coming out for consoles yet. There's articles about that from the same month the first 3 were released. And that's the problem with using most user reviews, so for now we'll just stick with the professional ones. Sorry, I had to get that out. Moving on. So if they're not poor quality based on professional reviews, then are they definitive? Well, let's find out! Unlike the people I mentioned earlier, we're going straight to the source to see what they said about the Pixel Remasters release and what the goal of the games were. We wanted to provide an environment where it was easy for both longtime fans and Final Fantasy newcomers to play the original 6 titles by remastering all the games again in a consistent way. Reading further, they go on to say, these are remasters based on the original Nintendo and Super Nintendo versions. No changes have been made to the stories. Some of the things that were altered or added in previous remakes are not included in these versions, meaning they were intended to be just as the originals. Some of the biggest complaints about the remasters, besides the font, which, again, who cares, is the lack of extra content. And just like with the lack of a console release, people are rating poorly due to the extra content being cut. So, using the same strategy that we used with our Campbell soup thing earlier, we can look at something subjective like music. Take, for instance, Michael Jackson's landmark album Thriller, an absolutely classic album that still sells these days. In this scenario that I'm presenting, let's say that, just like the Final Fantasy games over the years, things were added to the album and released as Thriller, the deluxe edition or whatever. I didn't think that through very well. And it has extra content like another chorus being repeated, or a verse that was never released. Or, I don't know, even an extra song that was recorded during the sessions for the album. And then, later on, they re-released the original album again with its original name and track listing. Sure, the extra material is nice and interesting, but it doesn't really add anything substantial. That's essentially what the Pixel Remasters are. The extra dungeons and small additions added over the years don't make the game more complete. It's just more stuff to do. They're nice little additions specific to those versions. Honestly, it was a reason for people to buy the games again, which, does that make that a cash grab? I think that the original versions of the games are the definitive ones, and the Pixel Remasters are just a more consistent and balanced way to play those original versions on more accessible platforms, making them the definitive versions. The only exception to this whole thing is Final Fantasy IV. There's a million versions of this game and they all have different little story bits that were changed or added. Like Kane's extra story info on the DS version or the after years on the PSP version. So the word definitive may be a little blurry on that one, but all in all the main story hasn't changed for any of these. And the story is what you play RPGs for, right? In the end, your thoughts on the games are yours and yours alone, and those thoughts are valid. I'm certainly not trying to mute anyone's opinions, but I think some people might have the wrong idea about how to show love for the series to the creators. Sometimes we can get a little too caught up in our emotions, and honestly, it's all about love for the games. Here's the thing about everything so far. I love the Final Fantasy series. I get passionate about it, but I can also look at it from afar and know when things aren't so good, kind of like when the movie The Spirits Within came out. Not a proud moment for us fans, but this is not one of those times. And lastly, if you've never played a Final Fantasy game before and you're a little overwhelmed by all the choices, you have to check out this video over here. I cut all the confusion out and give you a pretty solid starting point, in my opinion, so you don't want to miss out on this one. Fun fact, see if you can find a little bit of footage that I reshot for this video.